In today's episode.
We are all prepared to detect all the fraudulent activities as always. This is actually the first industry I've ever been into. $1 due to fraud, and actually it costs you almost two. We decided to join forces and launch a crypto exchange. There was always something weird with the email address. We decided to build an in-house tool.
What's the difference between SEON and any other providers?
First of all, platform needs to be industry agnostic. So SEON would like to be.
Do you expecting in next 5 years it continue increase, or we will see that some of the company like going closed and their journey gonna stop?
It's quite tough for raising new rounds. It's just getting harder to play in this industry. There was, €2,000 worth of charge, but I maxed out the daily limit of my card.
What skills are necessary to be a COO?
I would say, first and foremost, I have to put myself in the shoes of the customers. I can tell like a number of our customers are still, I don't have aspirations to work anywhere else. I would like to build the best possible fraud detection company. It wasn't me alone.
Hi everyone, welcome to the new episode of the podcast Journey into Fraud Prevention. I'm your host Ivan, and this episode I'm joined by Tamas Kadar, who is COO at SEON. Let's begin. Поехали. Hi Thomas, how are you today?
Hey Ivan, very well, thank you. And yourself?
Very well, thank you. And is it any difference this Friday compared to past one? Because today is most favorite in the fraud industry Friday.
Yeah, definitely we had to gear up for the incoming volume increases. So exciting times. Definitely different Friday than the previous one, but we are all prepared to detect all the fraudulent activities as always.
I can expect, and the next favorite day is Monday because it's like Cyber Monday.
Yeah, indeed.
Let me start with very simple question. I start all my episodes with these questions. Fraud prevention. What is fraud prevention for you?
So, as per the definition of fraud prevention, basically keeping businesses safe from fraudulent activities. And why is it important to me is I really believe that ensuring trust and safety in online transactions is a key priority for any online business out there. Otherwise, you would have a really hard time to recover from the losses. So I also have a personal connection to the topic. I'm really passionate about protecting customers and businesses as well as online.
Yeah, we're gonna touch later on about how you actually joined this industry. Just follow-up questions about like fraud prevention or trust and safety or cybersecurity. Generally speaking, they're kind of all the same. They have some differences between. But do you think the fraud prevention is only about financial losses, or it's like any other major impact in this industry can be covered?
It definitely has a major impact for sure. So I would say that if you're a fintech company and unless you take care of fraud prevention, then you will probably go under very soon. So, fraudsters can find exploits and leverage those loopholes in the protection of an online business, especially fintech. So it's definitely really important. But also, it's possible to keep it at bay. So, if you implement the right processes, tools, and the team in order to protect your business against fraud, then you can minimize the losses and the impact on your business.
Thank you for more exploring answers. It's very important to hear that one from you. And how long have you been in the industry?
Yeah, this is actually the first industry I've ever been into. So, right after university, we started our business, and I'm involved since the last almost 7 years.
Oh, 7 years. A long period of time, specifically for the past, I know, 4 5 years. It's a lot changed. The game changed a lot.
Yeah.
When you just like first joined the like fraud prevention industry, and when you're looking back, do you see it's like a huge difference, and it's still ongoing innovations in the fraud prevention industry, or it's like pretty the same if we not include, for example, COVID, 2 years of COVID?
Yeah, I would say that the ultimate purpose for fraudsters stayed the same. So to try to gain as much money in the shortest period of time as possible. So their intention and the reason why they are committing these actions is the same, to gain something in terms of monetary value. So what I would say the difference is how well businesses are prepared. When we've started, it was completely different. So many, businesses didn't have a proper solution in place, and as they've been victim of fraud more and more often, they have implemented some tools, processes within their business to protect them. And fraudsters also got smarter. So unless they have improved their internal arsenal, the war chest to protect their business, they have seen increased losses. Like, fraud is evolving and growing and affecting more and different businesses and also more individuals in different ways. It's not just credit card fraud anymore. Account takeover became a thing, and then of course scams, phishing, social engineering, they're all part of the wider picture. So I would say that, yeah, fraudsters are still trying to do the same thing, and businesses are getting more and more prepared, but as well as the losses are increasing generally.
How I see this one, and just like want to hear your opinion about my thoughts. So the knowledge about fraud is growing for like past several years for sure, and also fraud, like fraud prevention, become more and more in discussion of revenue. But before, everyone tried to remove it from discussion about like revenue. They say, yeah, it happens, but we don't want to keep it as a main metrics because it isn't important. And nowadays, everyone, specifically for everyone who accepting, I know, credit cards is a great example. They say, yeah, we need to consider this one because the fines are huge. Damage is really hard to recover.
Yeah, yeah, I would say it's not just the loss of the goods and services that you give up to fraudsters. There's a lot of different types of connected costs, like human element, the cost of your team, cost of your tools, cost of disputes, and it all adds up. So I've seen some studies, and when you lose $1 due to fraud, then actually it costs you almost two. So the impact is much higher. And you're right about more businesses are realizing the magnitude of the problem. And they also put it as one of the KPIs into their balanced scorecard. When they have a team, you want to keep your team accountable for the KPI they're working towards. And it's becoming more and more as a key metric within online businesses to actually keep as low as possible. And the whole fraud detection and risk team joint effort is actually to decrease this percentage wise loss as an impact of the revenue.
Everything about money nowadays.
Yeah.
Nothing changed. Yeah. You mentioned you coming to the industry in right after the university. Could you share why you decided to join fraud prevention path? Like, what was motivation, the story behind it, or it's like you just randomly decide to join and stay here?
Yeah, it wasn't random. What happened essentially is during my university years, my co founder is still, but was as well as back then, a good friend of mine. And we decided to join forces and launch a crypto exchange. And we wanted to accept the fastest form of payments, which was credit card. So when we went live, the payment gateway integrated on the site. During the first week, we have lost quite a big sum of money due to fraud. We didn't know anything about fraud. We didn't know it exists, but we started to research the topic. We looked into these transactions and decided to also have a look at the market, what solutions are available, and what we've seen is actually most of these providers were really enterprise focused. So they haven't shared much details about their product and features on their website. Also, the pricing wasn't published and the documentation neither. So we saw that these providers couldn't really cater to such an early stage business like ours. And we were thinking to implement an ID verification solution, but we also realized that it's not a bulletproof solution because, on one hand, it's really expensive. It can cost up to $2 to verify an ID or a passport. And as well as fraudsters can just buy from the dark web stolen scans of passports and IDs to bypass these measures. So it's not bulletproof, and as well as it's friction during an onboarding process. So When we investigated those transactions we have seen in the beginning, we came to the conclusion that there was always something weird with the email address. Let's say it was a disposable one, or they haven't had any profiles attached to it. We have seen that the IP was bogus in many cases. They used a VPN provider or proxy. So we said that there must be a way to actually completely invisible and friction-free way assess the risk of the client's transactions. So we decided to build an in-house tool, and then as we spent more and more time discussing the tool and the features with other potential users of it, we have realized that it could be a great B2B SaaS business if we create an API platform. So that's when SEON was created, and that's when we started to work on it full time right after university.
Amazing story. Thank you for sharing with us. And we can jump immediately on one of the questions, like Sion. I understand. We already know what the story behind it, how it was created. It started as like some approaches in your company, and after this, it's grow to separate business. And right now, it's B2B company
Mhm.
that's providing fraud prevention solution, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Very simple question: what's the difference between Sion and any other providers?
Yeah. First of all, as I've mentioned, we when we investigated the other tools, we saw that they are not really tapping into data sources that we thought are very valuable to detect risky behavior in customers. So most of the providers were using the customer's data. And when you launch an API call, you put details about the customer in there, and that's just not enough to create the most accurate decision making model. Like, you wouldn't want to outright block different type of patterns based on a simple set of data points. It's not just a geolocation, user agent data, looking at the item and the bin data. You need much more. So we decided to build a tool which has most in-depth, also the widest range of data points available real time based on these invisible collectible data points. So that's what we've decided to call data enrichment, based on the digital footprint that we can analyze in a completely invisible way of the clients of our customers. So our purpose was to create a tool which provides the most data points, like thousands of data points about someone's email address, phone number, IP, and device. These data points can be found at any online business. So we said that the platform needs to be industry agnostic. We wouldn't want to tailor it for one specific industry. If you are letting customers to onboard, and it's important to you to have the highest conversion during onboarding and the lowest cost for onboarding new customers, but also you want to prevent fake accounts to be opened or customers opening multiple accounts is a problem, then you need a tool which can assess these data points real time and with an algorithm that's the most accurate possible. So that's what we have invested the most resources into. Our R&D team now is over 120 people, and all of them, I mean, most of them are working on actually this part of the business by leveraging these publicly available data points that anyone can look up online. When we started to work with, let's say, KLM, we saw that their analysts, when they manually were reviewing a transaction, they were copying, pasting data points like emails and IPs into different sources, social media networks, to try to build a profile to draw a conclusion whether they are genuine customers or just, fake users using brand new email addresses or proxies. So we said that, hey, we can automate all this. We can put everything into one single API, which is easy to integrate. By that, we also mean that we decided to adopt this so-called product-led growth fashion. So anyone can open an account. We also have a freemium model. They can look into the API docs, the knowledge base of user manuals. So it doesn't really need to involve a human who could assist you to leverage the platform. And as well as, what we have realized is that there are really like three type of companies in the space. One of them who are providing this chargeback guarantee model, which is great, but it's mainly useful for retail and e-commerce players who don't want to deal with fraud at all. They would like to just outsource it. So those providers are more providing like a black box type of classification. and you cannot really alter the model. Although they do provide a guarantee on the decision they do, but we realize that there is some of controversy or conflicted interest in it, because then these providers would actually block more legitimate transactions and customers compared to white box providers, because it's their interest also not to pay out on semi fraudulent transactions. So the false positive ratio is much higher. And then there are providers who are more based on the risk engine. So they let their customers to tailor the rules and manage cases and tap into third-party data sources for data enrichment. That's great, but also like those providers have stopped innovating lately. They got acquired by some large companies, and we haven't seen much development neither in the data sources they use, but as well as how flexible their rules engine is, and as well as they have fall behind the whole machine learning slash AI development. So they haven't really have invested into those. And then there are providers who are like single data source providers who tells you, whether an email or a device is risky or not. But the market is really going towards to either be a data source or an orchestrator who does everything. So SEON would like to be an orchestrator, would like to be a platform. We would like to cover a complete risk slash compliance stack for our customers. We don't want them to use a number of other vendors in order to mitigate risk. We would like to be the single source, which is great because today everyone would like to consolidate as well. So they would like to use one vendor for one tool, and there's always some overlap between these vendors. So really are investing today into becoming a platform like a single source of truth and all-in solution, like a real platform.
Thank you for describing. It's a lot of information to process. First of all, I want to say I jumped on the site right before our recording, and I really like one of your features that you actually. I don't know how it works, but from human perspective, I really like it when you just can enter your personal email and getting information
Mm-hmm.
where's your email used. And I realize I have my email that I sign in long time ago still it's company with elephant on the
Mm-hmm.
icon. Yeah, I forgot what the name of the company,
Anonymous,
but
maybe.
yeah. I just realized I need to close in this one.
Mm-hmm.
I really like. I know how it's work. It's brilliant, I would say. I just want to hear your opinion. So, the number of providers for preventing fraud increased for the past, let's say, 5 years. A lot, maybe double. Do you expecting in next 5 years it continue increase, or we will see that some of the company like going closed and their journey gonna stop?
Yeah, I can see today the market is quite tough for raising new rounds. And, during COVID, it was a boom. So new startups have been created. So I'm not sure if this pace will keep on going or whether there will be some slowdown. Potentially, we can see already some form of a slowdown. It's very hard to launch a company. There are some big players out there and they're also providing similar services. So to compete against them, you need to have like large team, a well functioning product, and came to the product market fit as early as possible in order to raise the next round and grow even bigger. So I think that there are some niche sectors where there is some room for new players to become part of. But what I can see is that it's becoming more of like a red ocean. So it's very hard to stand out with a set of new features. Like it's really noisy out there. So when you are like an analyst or a decision maker in risk or fraud, then you look at 10 different vendors, and you cannot really tell the difference between them if you just look at the product features. Running an RFP is becoming challenging in this industry because everyone tells you that, oh, they do everything. But when you have to drill into those features and capabilities, you might realize that on the surface, it looks good and they might do something you want, but in reality, it doesn't really work or doesn't solve your actual problem for a specific use case. So I really think that we have to, wait probably like 1 or 2 years to see whether the market will be still like so lucrative like 2 years ago. But in the last 2 years, there's definitely some form of a slowdown. I think still it's a big problem. So more entrepreneurs would like to solve this problem. but at the same time it's just getting harder to play in this industry as a new player, because you don't have the traction, you don't have the trust, because you're a small company, you just launched. So definitely it's challenging, and it was challenging for us when we started, but fortunately with hard work and a clear vision we got to a solid point. In Europe I can tell that we are, I would say, the largest fraud detection company. In the US, we are still not the largest one, but I think very soon we will be.
I just want to say good luck in your journey. I believe you're gonna achieve it, specifically of the vision. We're gonna return to your position in the company in a bit, and I just want to break down a bit with this simple question: have you ever been a victim of fraud?
Yes, yes, I was. Yeah.
Is it some crazy story behind it? Something you flexible to share?
So I was traveling in Latin America, and what they do there in many places, like the same in the US, they take your credit card and use the post terminal in another place where you don't see what they do with them. So I was, using my normal credit card, and then a couple of weeks later, I woke up. I have already returned back to Europe, and then there was, 2,000 euro worth of charge, but they maxed out the daily limit of my card. Fortunately, I got back the money, but they have used my card since it was originating from a European issuer. There was like 3D Secure 2.0, so strong customer authentication, but they used at sites where it's not enabled. So as a payment gateway, you would like to have, and as a merchant too, you would like to have the least amount of friction, the highest level of conversion to minimize churn. So they use my card deliberately in places which they knew that there won't be any one-time passcode or multi-factor authentication implemented. I got back the money, so I was fortunate, but not everyone is in the same place. So my takeaway is, when I travel to less reliable places compared to some countries, like like in North America or Europe, then I will just use like a travel car. Like I have like multiple credit cards now, and then I'm gonna just like increase limit when I'm in these countries, and then use the card there, and I'm gonna like decrease the limit almost to zero when I'm not traveling and using the card. And that's like the best solution you can have, as long as internet payments, credit card payments work in a way where you can just enter a bunch of characters from the credit card itself, which can be physically visible, then you can be victim of fraud very easily. Fortunately, I haven't been in any other cases, but I've heard about many different stories. Like there is a lot of different ways how fraudsters can access your wallet and steal some of your money.
Yes, it's still actually one of the most popular things when someone just going somewhere in a restaurant, they take your credit cards, going somewhere and they do some manipulation behind it.
Yeah,
I believe the second popular it is ATM fraud. You know, when they put the machine in some public places and collect a lot of credit card details. It's still very relevant. And what you mentioned about like all these controls in place, I recently back from holidays and I travel in the States with my British credit card. We tried to book a car and the lady swiped my card and it was declined. And when I checked my application, say the magnet line disabled for your card. And I realized that I haven't used magnet line for a long
yeah,
time, maybe 3 years.
yeah.
They're still using this one, and that's what really like scare me. I need to open application and enable this feature. That's like something
Of
new
course.
for me. I realize. Yeah.
Yeah, Europe is ahead, compared to the US in this case. I think using the chip or the contactless methods through NFC hubs with tokenization in order to avoid your card being skimmed. So, skimming is the type of fraud you've mentioned that can happen throughout the ATM scams. But basically, with these, like skimming machines, they just steal the card number and they can create a copy of it. They can use it for online purposes, although like many ATMs don't allow you to use just a magnetic strip on your card. If your chip doesn't work, they won't accept it because they know that it can be a cloned card which can be used on these machines. But yeah, it's still a thing, especially in the US and other countries where they haven't adopted yet the chips or NFC type of payments. And that's why like Apple Pay or Google Pay are so secure, because it's also based on the NFC chip, so there is some tokenization.
I prefer to use this one. I know a lot of people in the industry who say Apple and Google Pay they are not secure from some instances, but compared to Magnet Line, they are.
I
They
mean,
are.
yeah, it's not secure in a way that when I have access to some banking app, then they can create like new cards at at some now banks or normal banks quite easy, and they can add to their own wallet within their device, and still drain the money from your bank account. But as a customer, and if you use your own card at different places, then it's very secure.
Yeah, the main outcome for everyone who listen, if you travel somewhere, just create another card just for travel. It's
Yeah,
like much safer than using your day-to-day card.
exactly.
And if you back to your current position as executive director, if I'm not mistaken, in the SEON,
Mhm.
first questions quite interesting. What skills are necessary to be a COO in a company with fraud prevention?
I would say first and foremost being customer obsessed. So you have to live and breathe your customer desires and needs for a product like this. You cannot ignore them, but also you cannot only listen to them. You have to understand the vision and the direction you have to take. So everything needs to happen from the customer perspective and point of view. You have to build a product which actually helps them to solve the problem. You cannot build a product that is not based on customer driven development. You have to enhance it with your own ideas, but then you really need to listen to your customer. You have to invest in the best possible customer care, so you can have a very good experience from the customer perspective. So that's number one. Number two will be determination. So it's very hard to grow in this industry. It takes time. Sales cycle are probably longer than for some other providers, and the solution is complex. Like the systems and tools that can help to detect and prevent fraud are complex because it's a complex problem to solve, and you need to have real determination to solve the problem. You have to invest a lot of time, energy, resources into make this happen. Yeah, that's the second most important.
Right, I already started writing this down one day. I don't know if I am able to be CEO in any companies, but it's really great to hear. And you mentioned that you need to be aware about your product. So I guess you're time to time testing as a customers how it works from customers' perspective when some of the companies integrate with SEO. Have you ever tried to using the credit cards with a new company to check how your solution works, if it's any delay or if you can figure out that's your solution in place? Is it
Yeah,
some kind of tricks here? Yeah.
every day. Like I have to put myself in the shoes of the customers, right? Like that's one of our values as a company, being customer obsessed. I'm checking every day all the customer feedbacks and notes and requests. I'm investing a lot of time into creating a complete picture of the customer sentiment and the direction of the product and the vision, and the business strategy based on this needs to be tailored to actually fulfill the needs of the customer to cover the whole stack of risk and compliance from the customer perspective. So yes, I have every time we have a release, I like test the features. I even in the planning phase and scoping phase, I'm working closely with the product managers and the CPO. Like I'm a product guy, I'm not a sales guy. So that's my strength really. I try to invest as much as possible in this topic.
I believe your R&D team after every release just like sitting somewhere and okay, he's gonna be test us. I hope we're not gonna be declining his transaction and it's supposed to be very smooth. But if it happens and they go this emails, they're just like, all right, not this time, but some countdown happens.
Yeah, sort of. They're not stressed about it, let's say, but it's good to have some level of awareness of the situation.
I don't mean they are stressed. I just say, from my perspective, I believe it's a great approach. Specifically, you a little bit more, I know, spend time to check something before you release, and they give you like extra options maybe to grow your products or maybe fix something, because if someone from C level gonna check the business, they definitely reach out to you. So what's the
Mhm.
reason to deploy something which is bad
Yeah,
if you can take extra time to fix to deploy something good?
of course, you're correct.
What is hardest things in the fraud industry in general, specifically on your position? We understand it's like a lot number of competitors right now in the markets. What other things it is? I know, quite curious actually.
I would say, fraud is evolving and you have to keep always one step ahead. And if you are building a tool which is industry agnostic, you have to know the different needs, desires of different industries, use cases within the industries. So you actually have to tailor the algorithm. We have machine learning capabilities within the platform, but it's really challenging to convince the customers to actually rely on automated decision making. When you sell a tool like this to end users, so fraud analysts, they would like to protect their job, they would like to supervise the rules and the algorithm, they would like to fine tune it, tailor to their needs. And some cases it leads to underutilization or overutilization, but it's due to the human element. And then in other cases, when we sell to decision makers, their vision is to focus the team resources on being more efficient. They don't want to hire two times of the people they have if their volumes goes up by two times. They would like to have better tools, processes, and more automation. And in order to get there, we have to get like feedback every time there's a decision by SEON. We have to know, whether if it's a false positive or a false negative, so we can, retrain the model. And sometimes that's missing because it's hard to get information about the actual outcomes. So in order to get those data points back, we have built a number of features, but it's still like, I can tell like a number of our customers are still like pretty much involve a lot of human steps and manual intervention in terms of how they use the product. And I think we are going to a direction where we can invest more into automation, so their job is safe, but as well as it's not efficient in many cases. There's some overlapping activities, or there's like some processes above and below of our tool set. So we really need to become the glue between these end users and as well as decision makers and other departments. So we don't want them to use Excel sheets or other like CRMs. Meanwhile, they investigate one transaction. Our product should be the single source of truth to make a decision, and also it should collect all the post-transactional data in order to retrain the model and provide the best possible suggestion and adapt to the new fraud patterns as early as possible.
Thank you for again for this very described way how you answer on these questions. I really like it. Really appreciated this one. If you target to fraud prevention, I know you don't like how this change. You don't like that some new way of fraud happens. Do you already have any ideas where you're going? Any particular path? Maybe companies. Maybe you have dream company you really want to be work. I know, be a new CEO of Microsoft or Google.
No, like we don't have as of now like an exit strategy. We don't want to be acquired by a large company. For now, we grow healthily, we grow fast, and we would like to possibly take the company public at some point in the future. I think we still need to do a lot of work. We have to hit our milestones in the next couple of years. I don't have aspirations to work anywhere else. I would like to build the best possible fraud detection company, like a single go-to solution for any businesses out there. And that's a big task. Like that's a huge challenge. So there needs to be a lot of work done in order to get there. But for now, I think we have a clear vision picture of this roadmap to get there, and we do our best, and the team is super agile to make this happen. So I'm really grateful for every contributor to our success. And it wasn't me alone. Like it was the whole team, especially like the exec team, the leadership, and of course the ISIS too. So we are rowing into the same direction, which is the most important thing. As like a career path, I think fraud detection is a great industry. It's evolving and growing, and there's still a lot of to be done. So I would really suggest everyone to join this industry and make the world a safer place from fraud. So that's on the journey we are on as well. And I think we are just getting closer and closer together. Possibly we won't ever make fraud eliminated from the world, but we can do our best to minimize the losses, as I've mentioned in the beginning of the conversation.
Cool, cool, cool. It was one of my future questions. If you recommend to join fraud prevention and where did you get answer? Yeah, I have last one question because what I understand from our call, you have You spent a lot of time with the SEON, and I believe you're pretty busy. But I believe everyone's supposed to be have some work life balance. And how you like actually like relax out of this work that's help you to energize yourself, and the next day back like on the fight area, and continue working in the way how you work.
Yeah, I do a number of things. So I practice Thai box slash Muay Thai, which is similar to fraud fighting, but I'm fighting with real humans, but in a friendly way. And I take every day a trip to the sauna. Helps me to release the toxicity that I collect throughout the level of different challenges, as well as the different, like, it's not easy to be a CEO. Like, you always get the worst of the worst. Like, if something is going well, then probably don't have to invest too much time in it, because that's on a good trajectory. But things that not doing well is gonna keep you awake. And I think it's good to just relax and meditate in 100 degrees for 15 minutes to let it all out, and then I can keep on going. Like, that gives me a lot of dopamine to make this happen. I like to spend time with my family. We will have a new member of the family soon. So we're expecting a daughter in the next 5 weeks. I'm going to be a dad, which is super exciting, and I hope to spend some time. I mean, of course, I will, but hope to spend as much time as possible with my future daughter. So that's super exciting, and I'm looking forward to welcome her in this world. But yeah, I think you need to have a balance. If you don't exercise, if you don't have good social connections, it's easy to burn out in any job. You don't have to be the CEO to burn out. You can be an IC, you can be just a regular employee. If you don't balance different activities in your life, then that's not going to end up well. So it's obviously, like, it's a roller coaster to be an entrepreneur, and there are some ups and downs. That's part of the journey. Like, that's how we learn. That's how we evolve. I would say that if I would go back in 6 years, I would be able to give myself a lot of useful advices. But I also enjoyed the ride to get to this point, and I believe in forever learning. So I look at everyone like a mentor to myself. I'm super interested to see candid feedback and build upon it. So my team also realizes this, and they're also pretty helpful to make me a better person and professional. So I'm super thankful for everyone around me to give me the positive energy, and like, also I can give back the same level of excitement, passion, and energy because of my team.
Amazing, and congratulations. I believe it's next 5 weeks a lot of change for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And a
it is.
positive way. Yeah.
Yes.
Thomas, thank you so much for joining us today. It was very nice conversation and a great story that I'm hearing from you. Thank you everyone who joined us today for listening to this new episode.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for letting me to share some insights, and hope it's useful for some people out there. More than happy to give back to the community. And yeah, thanks, Ivan, a lot for having me part of the podcast.
I'm still very happy that you agreed to join because I don't know, you is one of the biggest guy I know. I'm gonna say my favorite words at the end. It is cut.